Hello and welcome to the Addicts Anonymous podcast. I'm your host, Jim R. Today's episode 212. We're going to be doing a little bit of a different format. We're going to be focusing on the 10 steps of Addicts Anonymous, primarily step one. And I'm joined by Kevin and Mel, two of the admins from my group that help run Addicts Anonymous. How you guys doing today? How you doing, Kevin?
Wonderful. How are you, Jim?
I'm doing well. And how about you, Mel? How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm glad to have everybody here. So we're going to start off with reading a little bit from the Addicts Anonymous workbook. Bear with us; it's a work in progress. But here's a little excerpt from there, and we're going to talk about it once I'm done reading. So here we go. I think one of the first things that needs to be done is to admit to ourselves and to another human being that we are facing addiction issues and need help. Whether you need their specific help or not does not matter. It is primarily about being able to own up and admit you have a problem. Most of us have kept this secret for a very long time. It's good to finally admit this to another person. It can lessen the weight on your shoulders. For some reason, just talking about this can bring immense relief to the person sharing. To break the step down a little more, I would like to focus on the first two words. We accept it. These two words are very powerful. So many of us have had trouble for many years upon admitting we were an addict and had problems. Many of us just went on denying the fact that we needed help. We admitted nothing. For us to make this decision to ask for help from others is extremely difficult. So many of us have finally got to the point where we said to ourselves, I need help. And that comes only after many years of addiction and for some hitting rock bottom completely. And some have hit their rock bottom a few times. But all that matters at this point is the fact that you are asking for help. That is the first step in the process and extremely important to your recovery. You need to accept what is the reality of your life. With this step, the first thing we really need to think about is why we decided to get sober in the first place. For some, this might have been a quick decision, and you really need to take the time to think about why you're truly doing this. For some, this might have been something that has been building up for quite a long time, maybe even years. Many of us have been in denial for quite some time. So that's the excerpt. And I should have started with step one, but I didn't. But here's actually the wording of step one, which is we accepted that our lives had become impossible to manage. We could not control our addiction. So, as it said in the body of what I read, we're going to focus on we accept it. So, let me ask you guys, what did it, when did you first accept that you had a problem? Let's start with you, Kevin.
Um, Probably when I was 16 years old.
So, was it when you were 16, but when did you actually start drinking?
13.
So, it was fairly quickly you found out you had a problem.
I had been in Alateen for 4 years. I stopped going to Alateen when I was 14 because I just was drinking and using drugs too much to, you know, I just didn't feel right, going to Alateen anymore. So by the time I was 16, it was actually my brother who was like 17, 18 said to me, he said, we're probably alcoholics. And I was like, yeah, probably right. Because my dad was an alcoholic, but he was sober. He got sober when I was 7. But I was well aware of, AA's 12 steps and Alateen steps and a little bit of recovery, I was aware of. So, yeah, I pretty much accepted the fact that, that this might be my life. It wasn't that bad then, but I had to do something every day at that point. It was either I had to drink or I had to smoke pot or, I was already smoking cigarettes on a full-fledged basis by 16. And, if it wasn't pot or booze, it was, Coke or meth, or pills, but there was something in my system every day. From the time I was 13 and a half till I was 23, till my first rehab, there was something in my system every day.
Yeah. So let me ask you, Mel, when was the first time you accepted that you needed a problem? How long did it take you?
Um, well, it took years. It took a lot of years. Up until I was about 28 years old. So from 14 to 28, I really didn't. I acknowledged that I had a problem, but I didn't want to admit it to myself. I knew it was horrible for me, and I knew it was ruining my life, but I didn't want to accept the fact that this is my life because I didn't want to change it. I wanted to change it, but I thought it was too hard and thought it was just going to be like something that I wouldn't be able to do. And even after my car accident, which landed me paralyzed for about 6 years, I still was just self-loathing and depressed, and wouldn't get out of bed, drank, did drugs. Like it was a hell of a 6 years. And after after about 6 years, I realized that all my friends and family were pushing me away, and I was burning bridges left and right because I wasn't like sticking to promises, and I was just screwing people over. And once I realized like I had nowhere to go, I checked into a hotel to detox, um, and that was a very interesting experience. But yeah, that's where it all started, the detox and the acknowledgement of it.
What do you think? Well, I'm trying to think of when I accepted, so I should answer my question that I'm asking you guys. For me, it took a long time. It took about 20 years. From the time I was 17 until the time I was 37, I was usually, like Kevin said, on something.
Mhm.
There were brief periods of time, like there was a time for a year I didn't do anything because I was on probation and I was facing going to jail because I had gotten in a lot of trouble. So
Yeah.
if I violated my probation, I was looking at jail time. So I was actually able. I got caught twice smoking, and they gave me a second chance, and they extended my probation actually to 2 years, and then I quit for that second year.
Oh wow.
Um, but for me to actually accept I had a problem was I was trying to get my ex girlfriend back. She mentioned detox to me. She said that's probably what you need. I didn't know what detox was at the time. Like I was not in the I didn't know about rehab and stuff. Some people become familiar with it because they've done it so many times. I had no
Yeah.
idea about it. So I called a couple places and I called my ex-girlfriend. I'm like, oh, you should come over. Please come talk to me. I'm trying my hardest to get myself into a rehab. So she actually agrees to come over. And what do you think that Jimmy did while he was waiting for her to come over? He got
Um.
drunk and popped a couple Klonopin.
Oh Jesus. Yeah.
So she
Yeah.
gets over. I'm all messed up. She's yelling and screaming at me. Somehow I get thrown down the stairs. Um,
Mm,
and I go after her and corner her. And
mm.
she just goes running. I didn't run after her. Well, actually, I did. Then I stopped. And then I was like, what the hell am I doing? And the next morning, when I woke up and really didn't remember anything, like it took me almost a year to get my memory back of the situation. But I didn't remember anything at
Yeah.
first. And I was like, what happened? I was like, you were literally calling her over to try and say you're going to rehab, and that's when I realized like I have a problem
Yeah.
because if somebody else told me that story, like, oh, I had a friend who did this, I would say he sounds like an idiot,
Yeah.
right? He's waiting for
Exactly.
his girlfriend to come over to impress her that he's going to rehab, and he gets drunk.
Yeah.
And my
I've
excuse
I've
was,
had
say again, Mel.
I've had that happen to me before too. You don't feel bad.
Yeah, no, I
Like
mean, it is my story, so it's part of it, but it helped, got me sober, made me wake up.
yeah.
And obviously, the big thing that I'm not mentioning is she was pregnant at the time. So I had my daughter coming. So I didn't want to be a drunk for my daughter.
Yeah.
So my
And then at the
daughter was
same
the
time, I
primary
bet you
motivation.
weren't. Yeah, that's good. At the same time, like in those situations, it's terrifying because you don't know, you're not sure like how to be a parent. You've never been one before, and so you're trying to cope with the idea of that, and also trying to stop so that you can be a better parent.
Yep,
So it's a windy road.
it is. So, I mean, as far as acceptance, it's a big deal. A lot of people, they wait too long, I think. I think that's a major problem
Mhm.
as far as accepting, the first two words of the step is a lot of people just wait too long. They don't accept they have a problem. They won't, they try and hide from the fact too long. I know I did for a long time, but technically I knew that I had a problem before I went to rehab. It was just, it really hit me hard. And like the fact that I was having a daughter and all that happened, that really hit me hard. Like, okay, you really need help now. You knew you
Yeah,
needed help for a while, but now you need to actually get it.
yeah, and that's good. I mean, it's good that it changed you like that. That's actually what happened with my youngest son. I was on meth, a whole lot of meth every single day, and opiates also. And I just like remember getting on the floor on my knees and praying to God, like, please give me a miracle to get me out of this, because I'm gonna kill myself eventually. And like, I'm not saying that he gave me my son to get me to stop doing drugs, but I found out I was pregnant a week later, and I stopped doing everything. And I was like, that's an odd way to give me a miracle, God.
Yeah.
But it really it made me stop everything for a while. But after he was born, unfortunately, I went back to doing some stuff I shouldn't have been doing.
I always found it how amazing that a lot of women quit everything they're doing when they find out they're pregnant.
Yeah, yeah. It's like it's second nature. You don't even really think about it.
Some of them
Yeah, I
go back,
can't.
some don't. Yeah.
Then again,
Yeah.
some don't. There are some, I know some that use throughout their pregnancy. Obviously, I've heard a lot of stories. So I know a lot of people who had
Yeah.
babies born that were addicted and stuff. But acceptance is important. Does anybody have anything else on acceptance?
Nope, I think we go on to what.
I
Oh, sorry. Go ahead now.
I was going to say one of the things that worked for me for acceptance is that I wrote it down. Like I would write it down every day that I couldn't do this anymore and it was killing me, and it was like just the truth shoved into my face. I could look at it on paper and it made it more real. So that helped me a whole lot.
Yeah, that's why they say make a gratitude list and write things down, because it stares you right in the face. It kind of ingrains it in your brain when you write something down. They say there's a different effect to it when you write stuff down. It helps you remember it more.
It's also, I mean, keeping a journal. I mean, that was suggested to me several times. I don't do it anymore, but I have in the past, and everything like I put Monday, the 10th or whatever, and then everything would be written down, what I'm grateful for, what I'm doing, what kind of day I had. So everything would be in context, you know what I mean, of how I was applying things as well as listening to stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's funny, if I had some of those journals now, oh my God. It's,
Oh,
they're in a recovery house basement somewhere in Florida or Philly, or well, Florida, they don't have basements, but you know what I mean?
yeah.
They're long gone.
I
Maybe
have some
somebody will
journals that I'm afraid to
maybe
read.
somebody will find. Yeah.
That my fourth and fifth, my fourth step. I can't tell you how many 4 steps I did, and I don't have any of them now. You know what I mean? And it's not like I consciously threw them away. They got left somewhere. Either I most of the time what I could carry in the trash bag is what I had, and that was it in a backpack. You know what I mean? So it was either left in a rehab or a recovery house or a crisis center or a detox or something.
Yeah. All right. So we're moving on to the next part, which is now we're going to read a little bit more, which is we accepted that our lives have become impossible to manage. So that's something that we need to, that's part of accepting, is that our lives have become impossible to manage. We couldn't do it. Day to day, we could not handle our shit. That's basically the way I put it in layman's terms. You couldn't handle it. You couldn't handle life the way it was going, and you needed to accept that you needed to change. Those are strong words. My life had become, especially that word, impossible. Not that it was difficult, or not really that easy. It was impossible to manage. You could not do it. You tried and you tried and you tried, because most of us tried. We just didn't really want to admit that we tried, because we didn't want to admit that we failed.
Yeah.
So we kind of played it off like, oh, it's not a big deal. I just drank whatever. But we really knew we had a problem. But we knew if we tried, we would fail. I know if I tried, I would fail. That's one of the reasons I never tried also.
Mm.
And I was used to my life. But I mean, accepting that your life was impossible to manage was a big deal, because my life had become impossible. I drank every single night. If I wasn't drinking, I was snorting Adderall and Klonopin.
Yeah.
Like a lot of it.
Same here.
Yeah. So what made your guys' lives impossible to manage? Who wants to go
Uh,
first?
I'll go first. Um, well, first of all, I didn't recognize that my life was unmanageable. I think you touched on that a little bit. I thought it was normal what I was doing. You know, a lot of my friends were doing the same thing. Um, at 16, I had quit. I had quit school and went to work. Uh, you know, uh, my life had started to become unmanageable in high school. Because I didn't do any of my work. I didn't. I wasn't. I was failing every class. Um, you know, and they getting in trouble in school. And the when I went in with my mother to sign out when I was 16. They were all smiles and happy, trying to help me get out as fast as possible. The only good thing I did is I went and took my G. That was back in the day. This is what 1980. You could maybe 79. I can't remember. You could go take your GED. So as soon as you're 16, you didn't have to take a course. You didn't have to do any of that. Just go to the place where you can take your GED. And so I had my diploma 2 years before my class graduated. But then I started to work, and then I start missing days at work, and but I thought it was normal. You lie and call into work, and um, that kind of thing. All the way until I had already lost. I had lost a good job I lost a real good job at a pipeline. Um, one of the best jobs that anybody could get that wasn't, skilled at anything. And then I got another good job doing commercial maintenance, property maintenance, and I ended up, I couldn't function because at this point it was mostly cocaine, smoking or shooting cocaine. Um, freebasing was the big thing. And I finally, I was curled up on the couch in the fetal position, and I was blessed with a wonderful mother, and she came up to me and said, "Have you had enough yet?" And I was like, "Yeah, mom." You know, that's when I realized my life had become unmanageable because I was so sick all the time, and I was missing work, and again, I had a really good job. I was on the verge of getting fired, and I was messing up things at work. I was wiring stuff, and I was screwing up wiring stuff, and somebody would come in to flick a switch, and the switch would pop, and doing all kinds of stupid stuff. Um,
Jesus.
And thank God I had a good job to pay for my rehab. And then she after I said, "Yeah, I've had enough," I handed her. She asked for my wallet. I had my insurance card in it, and she came back in, into the living room and said, "All right, you're going to Valley Forge Rehab tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock." I was like, "Okay, I'm ready." And that's the first time I recognized my life was unmanageable. There's many more to come. So as we continue.
Yeah. What about you, Mel? What made you realize your life had become impossible to manage?
When I lost my kids, honestly, I lost my first son just to the fact that I was drinking and doing drugs, and that that there alone, that I couldn't take care of him at all. And he even had his dad in his life then. Like, we were both just alcoholics and drug addicts. And a couple years after he went to stay with his grandmother, I got in a car accident, and that was from drinking and taking a lot of medicine, like a lot of Adderall, and I drank like a liter, I think, of vodka. Ugh. And I woke up in the hospital with a broken neck, and I was told that I would never walk again, and that I'd be paralyzed from the breastbone down for the rest of my life. And that's when I realized that, like, I had absolutely no control over it, because I was still drinking. Like, after that, like after I got out of the hospital, I would still drink, just to shove down the emotions that I had of being paralyzed and feeling awful for myself. And so yeah, I was definitely powerless over it. You would think that something like that would make you like question question your choices, like but it didn't for me. It just made me drink worse and um participate in addiction a lot more than before. But I do think that it did save my life in a way, because I wasn't able to do things that I could have done before. Like I wasn't able to drive. I wasn't able to like go to like people's houses and get drugs and stuff. I was just not as independent as I was. So I think it did save my life in a way. Like it kept me from doing really dumb shit, but I still got high and still got drunk.
Mhm.
Yep. That's a crazy story about being almost paralyzed.
Yeah,
That was
I was
That's a scary
I
thing.
was a paraplegic, and like I thought I'd never walk again. They never thought I'd walk again. So I mean, one day I got a walker and I started using it, and I guess your brain rewires everything, like neurotransmitters and things. It can learn how to walk again without actually being like it was before. It makes new neuro passageways, I think it's what it's called.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Hmm.
Neural pathways.
yeah, I
Yeah.
went through a real similar thing, but yeah, I broke my neck and herniated 3 discs and busted both my shoulders. I actually punctured my clavicles into my rotator cuffs. I fell 30 feet to the concrete.
Oh
Oof.
my.
And yeah, I wasn't paraplegic. My left arm was paralyzed, but everything else I was okay with. But before they operated on my neck, they had to do both the shoulders first, the surgeries on both the shoulders. So it
Mhm.
was rough, you
You're
know.
lucky. You are so blessed.
Oh yeah, been told many, many times how lucky I was, you know.
Yeah, you're both lucky.
Mhm.
I mean, for me, my life become impossible to manage. Did I do mine already?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I
No.
don't think I. Yeah, I
You
don't
did
think I
like
did it
that.
yet. So for me, my life becoming impossible to manage. I mean, one of the things like was I was broke a lot because I spent a lot of money on liquor. Liquor and
Mhm.
cigarettes cost a lot. When you add it up daily, and then weekly, and then monthly, it's in the
Yeah.
thousands.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of money. Um, and my relationships, like I didn't have any relationships with friends. I was stuck to myself and just got high and drunk by myself. Or hung out with my girlfriend at the time. And that relationship was going downhill because she always wanted me to quit drinking and I couldn't quit drinking. Um, so it had made my life impossible to manage because I couldn't, because I supposedly at the time really loved my ex-girlfriend, but I guess I didn't love her enough. You know what I mean? But when my daughter came around, I realized that my life had become impossible to manage. I can't live a life like this while my daughter's going to be around me, and I needed to do something.
Yeah,
Can-
no, I get it. You know,
can-
I lived my life unmanageably for God, 20 years.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
you know, with kids, you know, getting arrested in front of them, getting tased in front of them, living in houses with no electricity, no running water, being homeless with them, you know, just everything you can think of. Fist fighting with my ex-wife in front of them. I mean, my life was just a shambles, you know, and I went on like that. For the first 5 years, I was pretty functional. Um, it wasn't until after I fell. That was God. We got married in '92. Yes, '97. I fell, and that started the opiates for me, and that just was a whole other chapter. You know what I mean? With the OxyContin '97. And back then you could. I was on workers' comp, and back then you could go to 4 different doctors and 4 different pharmacies, and nobody found out. They didn't check.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was four, four
My
scripts.
friend basically made a living doing that. He would just doctor shop every single day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pain specialist. We're nothing more than you know, nothing more than pill mills, you know.
Yep.
Mhm.
But you know, I was getting, you know, what 240 oxy 80s a month,
Gosh.
you know, and they'd be gone in a week and a half. I was doing up to 12 a day.
That's
Wow.
crazy.
And when work comp ran out, then you know, it's either drink or get heroin. And you know, that went off and on for years. You know, so
Yeah.
I started smoking crack, and then everything else I stopped doing. I only smoked crack. I would have a drink here and there, but you know,
Yeah, your
crack.
life sounded pretty unmanageable.
Yeah, crack. You know, that me and my wife had been, you know, separated by then. I had already been incarcerated for over 2 years, and you know, all kinds of crap happened in between. And but the crack started the homelessness and the prostitutes, and you know, it's just like crazy stuff. You know,
I would have never guessed that you had done crack. Never. Wow.
crack was my lover for about a year and a half, 2 years.
You never know. I mean, you see some people,
Yeah.
and they just
Like
don't
church
look like,
goers.
oh, it makes you realize anybody could have it. Anybody
Yeah.
could get addiction, and anybody could be addicted to anything.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people's lives, they don't accept that they can't control it. They don't realize it's unmanageable, and they wait too long and they die.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's why step one is so important, because that's what we're talking about at the end of the day right now. Is step one
You got to
is
come out of the closet.
exactly, you got to bring all the skeletons out of your closet. You got to clear the closet, and you
Mm-hmm.
got to accept that you have a problem. Your life's impossible to manage, and you can't control your addiction. That's the basis of step one.
And your family and friends will thank you for it, honestly.
Yeah, a
Because,
lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people think that they're failing by admitting they have a problem, like, oh, I'm a
yeah.
failure. No, I think it makes you a success.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you know
If you're
damn
going to
well
change
that,
your life, it's not too late. I mean, it's never too late. I don't care what anybody says. I
yeah.
think in the big book, in one of the revisions, there's a story of a 69-year-old woman who got sober, right? Am I crazy? Or did I
Um,
read it somewhere
Oh,
else? But
I'm
I
not
remember
sure.
reading somewhere about this woman who she was 69 years old and she had been drinking her entire life. She got sober in the last years of her life. She said, "We're the best."
Wow. Because she could remember them.
Exactly. That's another thing. I remember that's another way my life had become impossible to manage is the Klonopin and drinking mixed together caused
Oh,
big
God.
blackouts. And I did not
Yeah.
remember anything that
And,
happened.
and you're a total different person during those blackouts. Like you
Exactly.
are not a good person. I've
Yeah, saying
experienced
nasty
that a lot.
things, sending nasty texts. The
Oh,
next
God.
morning, I'd be horrified to see what I said. I'd be like, oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like when you're hungover and like your friends come up and they're like, "Do you know what you did last night?" And it's like, "Please don't tell me. I'm going to throw up." And then they're just like, "So you had your pants down, right? You were running down the street." And I'm just like, "No, don't tell me. Don't tell me." But I'm actually glad that a lot of people did tell me these things because I look back on it now and I'm like, no, drinking a
Never
beer is
again.
not worth that. Yeah. Yeah. I've embarrassed myself so much.
We do
Ugh.
stupid things. That's why
Yeah.
we need. That's why we got step one to admit we got a problem. We can't control it because
Yeah.
that's the third part. So we went through. We accepted our lives have become impossible to manage, and the last part is, and we could not control our addiction.
Yeah.
So we were all out of control. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I couldn't. When I quote unquote got sober, all I did was quit drinking and started snorting Adderall. And I told everyone I got sober. Look,
Hmm.
I'm not drinking anymore,
Yeah.
but I'm doing that. And like
Yeah.
I'm acting like this is okay.
It's like as long as it's prescribed, I'm good.
And it wasn't
You know?
prescribed.
Oh, okay.
I
Well,
was
even
buying it from my
so,
buddy.
like, yeah. I mean, you were sober from drinking, all right, but like, yeah, there's another void that you had to fill with something else.
The thing was it was the same void. I just filled it with something different.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I would stay up for days playing my instruments, my guitar and piano. I literally would stay up for 3 days. One time I had to go to the hospital because I had been standing up playing guitar for so long that my ankles had swollen up from all the, I
Mhm.
guess, blood
Oh
flow or
yeah.
whatever.
Mine used to do that all the time when I would stay up on Adderall. They would be like as big as tree trunks. Like my
Exactly.
ankles would be so swollen, and I thought that there was something really wrong with me, like I was having renal failure or something. But
Exactly. So I went to the hospital because I didn't know what was going on.
mhm. What did they tell you?
They said, "What do you expect? You're standing up for 3 days."
Did you tell them you were on Adderall?
I kind of told them.
Yeah.
I didn't admit as far as how much, but I said, "Oh, I took some, and I didn't know how strong it was, and it made me stay up for so long." When I took a lot,
Yeah.
I snorted a lot. But yeah, a
Oh,
lot of us are lives that we could not control our addiction. I mean, I was always doing something. I could not control it. Anytime I wanted to stop, there was no way I was doing it.
yeah.
Sometimes I'm trying to think if I actually ever got sober for an extended period of time besides probation. I don't think there was. I don't think that I even had a time where I said, "Oh, look at me, I'm going to get sober." Because, like I said, when I stopped doing one thing, I just started doing another.
Yeah. It was like that for me too. I would replace drugs with other things, like I would replace meth with Adderall, of course, and I would just try not to abuse it, so I thought it was okay. But then, like, after I decided that substances are not the way to go in any regard whatsoever. I mean, I am on Suboxone, but that helps me entirely different in a different way. It doesn't like feed my craving for getting high or anything like that. But I noticed I started doing other unhealthy things that were self-destructive, like just to have some control in my life. Like I started doing the keto diet, but I started doing it to like extreme measures. And I realized pretty quickly after I lost a bunch of weight, I was like, maybe I need to slow down on this. So like it's easy to just replace drugs, especially with anything, honestly. Even if it's not another substance, you can replace it
Oh
with
yeah, absolutely,
actions and behavioral things.
absolutely.
Mhm.
So Kevin, what was like moments you realized you're like you couldn't control it? Was there ever a time
Um,
where you were like, okay, let me try and control this, and it just miserably failed?
I never even thought about trying to control it because I knew, you know, if I didn't get help and stop, there was no controlling. I knew that. I had that education. It was all a choice at this point. I didn't choose to be an addict, but I knew recovery was out there and I had experienced it. So as far as I'm concerned, any time past that, it's my choice to pick up again. Um, and God, there's a whole list of things, you know what I mean? As far as losing jobs, not being able to keep a job, being homeless, um, having, doing risky behavior, being with prostitutes and um, using needles and, smoking out of a crack pipe that 10 people smoked out of, it's just, it's amazing. And I'm blessed, I didn't think God had his eyes on me for a long time because I never got a um, STD. I never got, well, most of the time I was protected, but anyway, but I never got Hep C. I never got AIDS, and it's just,
Yeah, a
I
lot of people get that from sharing needles.
right. I just think it's amazing. And crack pipes too. Crack pipes is another big spreader. Um, but, I mean, just, it was just crazy for years, Um, I'd be homeless and I didn't even think about it. All I thought about was getting my next one, whatever it was. I didn't think about trying to get better. I didn't care. I didn't have my kids anymore at one point. My ex left me with the kids. Um, and both of us ended up. I don't want to say losing our kids. We gave them away. Is what we did. Um, because we refused to get better. She wasn't an addict, but she had her own issues. But um, I was an addict, and I chose drugs and alcohol over my kids. Um, just.
Talk about being out of control.
Mhm. And when I started to get, sober and clean, it was around 2009. I relapsed like 6 times, uh, 6 or 7 times. And there was times that, I don't call it a relapse. If I go into rehab and then go right back out and start using, because it's just a 30-day vacation to get out of the cold. It wasn't, so like I've been to 16 rehabs, 16, some of them multiple times, but 16 times I'd been to rehab, and 14 crisis centers. And like I said before, over off and on over 2.5 years of being incarcerated, and being homeless and recovery houses and, the whole 9 yards. It's been 4 years, now that I've been clean. My the last recovery center I went to was, best. I had been to it before, but I got kicked out. But luckily they accepted me back again. It was a Christ-centered recovery center, and I did a year there, and I got out, and I haven't looked back. I built my tools. I do what I'm supposed to do now. And I had been sober 3 years when I relapsed, and I had stopped. I hadn't smoked crack since 2010. I hadn't done any illegal opiates since 2013, and I haven't drank since 2016. But I relapsed on my psych meds, Klonopin, like we were talking about before. I abused the Klonopin I had. So, and I did. I said I didn't do any illegal opiates. I did do Suboxone illegally with the Klonopin mixed with Soma. So for about a week and a half, and by that I was rendered homeless. Because where I was staying, I couldn't use and stay there. So, I had to go to rehab, and then I went straight into the year-long recovery program, detox rehab, year-long recovery program, and it's the best thing I could have done. Just I keep doing the same thing I do every day, and helping others and working on myself, and and like I said, I haven't looked back.
It's a better feeling than getting high. I think when you're helping other people and taking care of yourself, it's a much better.
Yeah, it's a much better place to be. Addiction's a lonely place to be in. Recovery, you're talking to people, you're helping people. That's why there's step 10, or for the other group, step 12, giving back. It's really important. But I think this has been a good podcast. How do you guys feel?
I like it.
I like it too. We should do it more often.
Yeah, we'll do, because obviously we're going to start doing all the steps. So we'll do step 2 next, which is the 4 pillars of Addicts Anonymous. But I think that's a good place to wrap it up.
All right.
All right, guys, sit tight for me. And for everybody watching and listening, if you like what you saw and heard, go below and give us a like. Also subscribe to see when we upload new videos. You can check us out on all social media. We're on Twitter, Reddit, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Tumblr, plus many more. You can also check us out at our website, which is www.addicts-anonymous.com. There you'll find plenty of free resources and literature. So that's all we have for today. I hope you enjoyed it. And until next time.